In the summer of 2026, the streets of New Delhi were occupied by a surreal sight. Hundreds of young people marched in silence, their faces obscured by identical, oversized cockroach masks. The demonstration led to a concrete political result. Within weeks, the mounting pressure from these protesters forced a senior cabinet minister to step down. It was the culmination of an unexpected shift, where a satirical internet joke about household pests evolved into a sustained challenge to the political establishment. The movement was built on a foundation of economic frustration. By early 2026, millions of young Indians were facing a stagnant job market, leading many to feel that their futures had become an afterthought to the state. The tension broke in May following a massive leak of the NEET medical entrance exam papers. For a generation already under pressure, the scandal signaled a systemic collapse of the meritocracy they had been promised. This comparison shows the scale of the crisis. 2 million students were forced to retake their exams, a figure that far exceeds previous disruptions in the history of the national testing system. Traditional television networks, often aligned with the government, offered little room for the students' grievances, frequently echoing the official narrative instead of investigating the failure. The spark for the rebellion came from the judiciary. During a session regarding fake degrees, the Chief Justice of India reportedly compared online critics and unemployed youth to cockroaches and parasites. Political strategist Abhijit Dipke chose to reclaim the insult. He launched the Cockroach Janta Party online, using the slur as a badge of resilience rather than a point of shame. By attempting to dismiss their critics with a derogatory label, the establishment provided a disconnected generation with a name they could finally organize around. The CJP focused its efforts on social media, using humor and satire to bypass the traditional broadcasting channels that the movement supporters called Gaudiya media. This chart tracks the digital reach of India's established political parties, showing steady growth that remained unchanged for years. The cockroach movement's growth was different. Within days, its Instagram account hit 20 million followers, surging past the nation's largest political organizations. The government responded by labeling the movement a national security threat and ordering the blocking of its accounts on X, formerly Twitter. The censorship only increased the movement's visibility. The attempt to silence the accounts served as proof to many followers that the satirical party was becoming a genuine threat to the status quo. This digital agility allowed the movement to compete for the national narrative, creating a space for dissent that the government's established IT cells struggled to contain. As the movement grew, it moved beyond viral comedy. In late May, the CJP released a specific 5-point political manifesto that laid out its vision for reform. The demands included judicial accountability, 50% reservation for women, and strict penalties for electoral fraud. They also called for an investigation into media ownership, specifically demanding the cancellation of broadcasting licenses held by the nation's most prominent billionaires. The humor of the cockroach masks provided a cover for a sharp political agenda that targeted the core structures of the Indian establishment. The movement reached a climax when the digital followers physically gathered at Jantar Mantar, the historic site of political protest in the capital. Protesters occupied the space for many weeks, bringing national flags and exam guides to symbolize their demand for educational and economic justice. The sustained presence in the streets eventually forced a reaction from the government. In late July, the Education Minister, Dharmendra Pradhan, resigned from his post. A digital movement that began with a joke had successfully forced the resignation of a key official in an administration known for its resilience to public pressure. The victory was significant. It represented the first major capitulation by the Modi government to a youth uprising in over a decade. The uprising also provided an opportunity for India's traditional opposition, which had struggled for years to mobilize effectively against the ruling party. Opposition leaders joined students in the streets and blocked parliamentary sessions, using the youth movement's momentum to challenge the government on the national stage. By tapping into the energy of Gen Z, the opposition achieved a level of political disruption they had failed to produce for years. However, the movement faces a fundamental hurdle. The CJP is not a registered political party and has no path to fielding candidates or participating in the formal legislative process. The organization's reliance on its founder also makes it fragile. When Abhijit Dipke was sidelined by typhoid in July, the movement's real-world momentum noticeably slowed. This raises a question. Is the Cockroach Junta Party a temporary release of generational anger or a new, permanent model for political mobilization? Regardless of its longevity, the movement proved that a marginalized group can turn a dismissive insult into a tool of political power, forcing the state to acknowledge their presence.